In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. There's a story that's told of two caterpillars that are talking. How does one become a butterfly? One caterpillar asked the other pensively. You must want to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar, the other replied. You mean to die? Asked the first. Yes and no, he answered. What looks like you will die, but what's really you will live on. This little story you can find on the internet, but if you look it up, don't believe Pinterest. It is not Pooh and Piglet. It's very much out of character for both of them. But this little story tells us a lot about what it means to achieve our dreams. If we're all honest, we all have dreams, and our dreams are always huge. Of course, we have desires, we have wants, things that we would like. Those don't tend to be too big. We have preferences for the patterns of our life, for the pace of our life, for how things go in general. Those are a little bit harder and they take a little more work. And then we have our dreams. You know, we're pretty good at getting what we want. We've gotten very good in the modern age, especially how we like our coffee, what kind of restaurants we like to go to, how we want our meat cooked, all those little things about our wants, and we've gotten very good at looking for it and very good at getting it. Our preferences are a little harder. Some of those are habits that we might struggle with to make bigger adjustments in our life. But I think all of us, at some point or another, or some degree or another, are frustrated because we haven't achieved many of our dreams. One reason is that we try to achieve our dreams in the same way that we try to achieve our wants or our preferences. We make little changes, we make little adjustments here or there, and somehow we find the way to our wants and our preferences, but many of our dreams elude us. This little story about the caterpillars tells us something very important about what it takes to achieve a dream. When the one caterpillar tells the other one, you have to want to fly so bad that you're willing to not be a caterpillar anymore, that gets really close to what it takes to achieve our dreams. We have to be willing to make not just changes here or there, but to really stop being who and what we have been and be willing to become something that we have not. It really means we have to give up in order to get. Of course, we have earthly dreams, things that we would like, whether it's material things, ways we'd like to live, maybe adjustments to how we encourage each other or not, how we live out our relationships, poorly or better. But all of us, with all of those differences, share a dream. We may not even be aware that we all share the same dream, but we do. We were all made to be like Jesus Christ. We read his gospel and we see his icon, and we see not only the Son of God become one of us, we see the image of what we were all called to be, not by nature as he is, but by his grace, by the gift of himself to us, to transform us from what we have been to what he has created us to be. St. Paul has something to say about that in today's epistle. We know what he says in today's epistle more than any other day is important because of how he introduces it. He says, "See with what large letters I write to you, You remember how John Hancock signed the Declaration of Independence? Nice and big. He said, I want King George to be able to see my signature with or without his glasses on. And St. Paul says to us, see with large letters, I'm writing by my own hand. So when St. Paul, who wrote so many incredible, important things, says, this is really important, I'm writing it myself and I'm writing it really big so you can't miss it. So it's important we don't miss it. At first it seems like he's talking about a minor item. Whether or not new Christians needed to be circumcised. It was a question at that point in the history of our church. In essence, the question was, do we need to become Jews before we become Christians? The larger question being discussed in the New Testament really is, what does it take to become a Christian? And St. Paul addresses that in the topic of circumcision, but he goes to his real topic. And he says, for neither circumcision counts for anything, nor uncircumcision. Now that would be scandalous to the Jews he was writing to. Circumcision was the entrance into the covenant relationship with God for the Jews. But he says, neither circumcision or uncircumcision counts for anything, but, and here he tells us what counts, a new creation. My brothers and sisters, you and I have attempted to live out our Christian life much like we try to get our wants. We'll make little adjustments here or little adjustments there. Sometimes we might even adjust somewhat the pattern of the changes we make. Both of those are good. But neither of those allow us to achieve dreams. We don't achieve dreams in any arena by making little changes here or there. Think about the examples you've seen of Olympic athletes. We'll start hearing about Winter Olympics coming up soon. And you hear about how they gave up everything. All of their ease, all of their convenience. To achieve what? To follow a dream. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., who gave that famous speech, I have a dream. And look what he gave to achieve that dream. And if that's what happens in our earthly life, it is no less in our spiritual lives. If we want to achieve our dream spiritually, to become who God created us to be, we have to do what it always takes to achieve a dream. We have to become something we have not been before. Not just a little change here and there, but a transformation. Today's gospel gives us a little bit of a cautionary tale. What happens when we don't allow God to transform us? Jesus tells the story of that rich man who had sitting on his porch a very poor man named Lazarus. Already a hint in his name that this one is going to rise from the dead. And it says that that man wanted nothing more than the food that would fall in morsels from the rich man's table. Jesus doesn't tell us in the story whether because the man wanted those scraps, the rich man gave them to him. We don't know. And in fact, the point of the story is that it doesn't matter. Would it matter if the rich man ignored the poor man who sat begging for food, dying of hunger, let alone the sores that covered his body, that the dogs would come, who had more mercy on him than the rich man? We don't know whether the man ignored him or threw him a few scraps. The point of the story is that it didn't matter. If that rich man was satisfied, could go to bed, sleep well, because he threw a few scraps to that man sleeping on his doorstep, dying of food, suffering from his injuries, that wasn't enough. Would it be enough for any one of us if we were that poor man, if we were Lazarus, so hungry we would die even for scraps from a table, what would it be like for us if somebody said, sure, here's a scrap, and then walked on and left us asleep out in the cold? The cautionary tale of this gospel is not just that Lazarus was rewarded for suffering through what he suffered through, but the rich man was punished because he missed the opportunity of his life. He could have changed the life of Lazarus, changed his life completely by bringing him in, or getting him to a doctor, or paying some money to take him to an inn. Anything other than just throwing a scrap or two. But that rich man missed out. Not only did Lazarus miss out on the good treatment from this rich man, the rich man missed out. And he finds himself in the story that Jesus tells, suffering in hell. So, brothers and sisters, the question is put to each one of us this morning. It's put to me and it's put to you. How is God offering us the chance and the opportunity to change? Not just the little changes here and there of the things we want, even good things we want, little adjustments here or there. Not even the improvements of our preferences. But who is the new person that you and I have been called to be, that we were created to be from the beginning? Like the caterpillar, we have to be willing to stop being caterpillars in order to become butterflies. Think about how we enter into the life of the church. It's baptism, the symbol of death, going underneath water that would drown us. I say to the mothers and everybody who gathers for baptism, look at the mothers. When they see their babies going under the water, they get baptism. It's a death. And it has to be a death because we need new life. We need to become what St. Paul says, a new creation. Because all those little things don't matter unless they add up to us becoming a new creation. If you've been out at all or turned on your radio, you know that the Christmas season is upon us because the Christmas music has begun. Well, maybe it's a good reminder for us because 10 days from today, our Orthodox Christian Christmas season begins in the coming of the Nativity Fast or Advent. The Church invites us to take a 40-day journey. And what's that journey? Not just to go buy all the presents, make sure the tree gets put up and the lights get put on the house. Not just to say a few prayers here or there, or throw a few scraps here or there. Advent calls us to recognize that the Son of God becomes the Son of Man. And in looking at that Son of Man, we see renewed humanity. The same humanity He has given us and called us to. We call Christ the new man, the new Adam, because He refashions for us what our humanity is called to be. So our Advent season can be just a season of shopping and crossing off to-do lists, or we can be like the caterpillar and decide we're willing to do whatever it takes to become a butterfly. And the major aspect there is that if we're going to be a butterfly, we can no longer be a caterpillar. We must become a new creation. So let's accept the change that God created us to have and is working in us even now to make. Let's work with Him and allow Him to make that transformation within us. Not simply to change us a little bit here or a little bit there, but to make us a new creation in Him. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.